Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yugioh video. So, there wasn't really a lot of major news stories where I felt like a video was warranted, and whenever that happens, whenever there's like a bunch of little like minor news stories regarding Yugioh, I like to kind of combine them, and I never really know what to call the segment. I always usually call it Yugioh News, but I'm just doing Yugioh Roundup February 2019. I feel like something along those lines. I feel like that's the best way to title this video, and we are going to be going over three things, including YCS Chicago, quick overview of what won that tournament, and the attendance there. Luckily, one of my good friends in the community, Jesse Wood, was at that event, and so I kind of have an inside glance into what the attendance was like, what the overall atmosphere was like, and why that is important, even if you just care about the anime and you don't care about the card game, in terms of the longevity of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. Obviously, turnout at a YCS or a tournament event, how the card game is doing, directly impacts whether we are going to get another Yu-Gi-Oh anime. So, gonna talk about that. We also are gonna talk about a new VRAINS Sound Duel that got announced. Exciting stuff there. So yeah, that'll be cool. And then finally, last but not least, we have a new video game on the horizon. Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, Link Evolution, coming out in Japan for the Nintendo Switch. I'll be giving a quick overview of what that game might entail, why it might not sound as cool as it seems, at least for people outside of Japan, and yeah, we'll be getting all into that. So, without further ado, let's begin with YCS Chicago. So if you don't know, YCS was in Chicago just a few days ago. It actually ended, I believe, like 5 days ago at the time of recording. And the deck that won was, you could probably see like a top 16 right now, was Danger Lunalights. So congratulations to the player that won. I should have written his name down. I do not have it written down. But yeah, Lunalights won YCS. Now granted, there were only, I think, like 18 Lunalight cards in the main deck and in the extra deck. But still, a Lunalight recipe to win. No, not many people saw that coming, if not anyone saw that coming. And out of the final 32, you had 10 Thunder Dragon, 10 Sky Striker, 2 Crusadia, 2 Subterror, a Pure Danger, Cyber Dragon, Trickstar, Magician, ABC, Orcust, Prank Kids, and then Lunalights. And of course, that Lunalight went on to win the whole thing. So I asked my friend Jesse what he felt the overall atmosphere at this YCS was, and a huge thank you to Jesse Wood for helping me out with this question, because I always like to think and try to put myself on a more card game perspective. Obviously, this is mostly just an anime following channel, even though I do play the card game casually now, and I'm trying to follow the meta a little more closely. How the card game is doing in terms of sales, overall atmosphere, and attitude towards the game is important, because if people aren't turning up to events, if they're not buying the cards, if they're not supporting the game, if their feelings towards the game are negative, that's not a good sign, especially for people like me who want to see the anime go as long as it possibly can. So I asked him that, and here's what Jesse had to say. He said, "I would say before that most people's issues in the format was main pseudo FTKs like Gumbalar and Rongo Bongo. Now that it's gone, I feel like people were more happy, hence why universal turnout was up. Biggest YCS I've been to since 200. Diversity of decks was huge. Feel like Altergeist didn't do as well as predicted due to everyone siding for it. Out of my group, I know we on average had 6 cards to directly deal with it inside. I personally mostly sided for Geist." So yeah, Emma Besso's Altergeists shockingly did not have any place in the top 32. They did not top at all, which my friend Thomas, who plays Altergeist, texted me and was like, yeah, I mean, what did you think about that? And, you know, it's just one YCS, but clearly here, from Jesse's perspective, and I'm sure from a lot of people's perspectives, people were planning to verse Altergeist. Altergeist was that deck that I think a lot of people thought was going to do really well, and so if everyone prepared to verse it and everyone sided with Altergeist matchup in mind, it's no wonder they didn't make the top 32, but that was maybe just as surprising as Lunalights winning the whole thing, the fact that Altergeist did not have any placement in the top 32, but clearly, according to Jesse, the overall atmosphere was very fun, the diversity of decks huge, which is good because that shows that there's an increase in sales and interest in people playing more maybe rogue decks, especially considering a rogue deck ended up winning. I think of Prank Kids winning Milan not too long ago. And this is what I asked in this is what Jesse had to say in direct response to my question about how the turnout was. Before the event, there was fear of lower turnout due to the fact that Chicago had dangerously cold temperatures. I know I was nervous about snow being a factor. 1,500 plus people, considering those conditions, was an amazing turnout, and in general was great. So huge thank you to Jesse for those quotes, and I'm glad you had fun in Chicago. That is awesome. The fact that there were that many people, and Jesse said it was one of the biggest and most highly attended YCSs he went to, even with the weather being a factor. There was snow in Chicago 2 days before the YCS started. The temperatures were negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill. Literally, if you were out in those temperatures for 2 to 5 minutes, you could contract frostbite. I mean, it was historically low. Just bitter freezing. I mean, I was out on Wednesday night because that tournament had started on Friday, and I think it was like negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit with the wind chill, and my face was like on fire after being out for like 20 seconds. So I can't even imagine 50 degrees lower than that. So thank God everyone was safe who went. Hopefully everyone was safe, and even despite the insane harsh weather, there was still a great turnout. So what does that mean? Great sign here. Turnout is high. Attitude towards the game seems mostly positive right now, and Chicago seemed like it was a lot of fun. And as long as the card game is selling well, that's why I always like to keep an eye on these tournaments. As long as the tournaments are being attended, the card games are selling well, there is no way that the Yu-Gi-Oh anime is going to stop, at least for that reason. That would be the main reason the show would stop. Of course, there could be other reasons that they'll take a break or hiatus, but from the perspective of, oh, the card game is dying, that does not seem to be the case at all. I haven't really heard many people say that. That was more in the Arc 5 era where I heard a lot of people say that, as a lot of people said that as the reason that Arc 5 might be the last game or the last show. Clearly the game is doing well, so that is a really, really awesome sign. Moving on to our second piece of news. VRAINS is getting its second Sound Duel, which will be released March 27th. I think this is a really good sign. Not only are we getting 18 to 30 more great instrumentals from Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS that we can drive back and forth from grad class to, or maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that blasts this music when I'm in my car. It's probably just me. But, yeah, the fact that we are getting a second Sound Duel after the first Sound Duel took a historically long time, literally the longest we have ever waited for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Sound Duel to come out in respective to the first episode airing. Remember, there were a lot of issues on production side of things early in VRAINS. The recaps, we had recaps in 13, 21, 29, and 37, I believe. A crazy stretch where every 2 months we were getting a recap, and the director was apologizing, and clearly there were some severe issues going on behind the scenes in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, and the fact that they waited so long to release the first Sound Duel, I think supports that, because, you know, you're not gonna release something like that until you have everything solidified in studio, most likely, because creating the product and creating the show is obviously more important than releasing the soundtrack. So the fact that we are getting a second Sound Duel so quickly after the first one was released makes me think that, yeah, I think production is okay over there. Of course, that's just speculation. We haven't had any recaps in recent memory besides, well, there was a recent recap, but there haven't been like a string of recaps like we had in the first season. I mean, recaps are a necessary evil, so even when a show is being produced really well, there's still going to be a recap episode popping up every now and then. Since Season 2 has started, the recap issue has pretty much vanished. It doesn't really plague the show anymore, and the fact that, again, we are getting a second Sound Duel so quickly after we got the first one, I think is a very good sign in terms of the studio being back on track, which is good. It's what we all want to see. Now, the last piece of news that I do want to go over, Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, which, yes, that was a console video game that came out a few years ago in the United States and in, I guess every territory besides Japan or maybe just outside of Asia. But we have news on Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution, and this quote is from DualShockers.com. Despite being promised a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game on 3DS a couple years back, players outside of Japan were never able to get their hands on the game. Now Duelists will soon be able to play the game on Nintendo's newest platform, the Switch, in the form of Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution. As of the time of this writing, not much else is known about the title. According to the game's website, players will be able to step into the shoes of past Yu-Gi-Oh series and duel using the OCG's new Master Rules. This means that players will be able to link summon during the game, the new method introduced in the franchise's latest anime, Yugioh VRAINS. Interestingly enough, the game shares the same name as 2015's Legacy of the Duelist, so it'll be interesting to learn if this is simply an updated port or if it acts as a sequel. The original game only featured summoning methods up until Pendulum, so it makes sense if it's an updated port. And furthermore, since it might not be a fully new game, remember, Legacy of the Duelist, I don't believe ever was released in Japan, since it might not be, or fact check me on that, I'm not actually 100% sure on that. But it seems like this might only be a Japan release. There's no indication right now that this game is coming to the States, that it's coming to Europe, that it's coming to Australia. There's no indication of that. So unfortunately, this is awesome, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a worldwide release game. I think of the Zexal Duel Carnival, or there was some game, or the Psycho Duel Carnival. There was some game that came out on 3DS in Japan that was never released in the States. I think there have been a few, actually. Or when I say the States, I just mean outside of Japan. Sorry, force of habit to say the States. But, yeah, awesome. And, you know, with the virtual reality aspect of things, they could make such a cool video game. They could make a video game where you literally enter Link VRAINS, you customize your own avatar, you could buy upgraded boards to do speed duels, you could do standing duels, which are just going to be master duels, you could go to shops to get upgrades for your avatar, you could enter a world where it's offline, and you see maybe former duelists from the other shows, and it's just the hologram version of them, and you can walk up to them and initiate a duel, or you can go into a massive online world where you can see other duelists and compare dueling records and make trades with other duelists and have friends and have like private friend lobbies all in like virtual reality. That would be so cool. The customization there would be amazing. And you know, with Yu-Gi-Oh video games, I played Legacy of the Duelist, I played Millennium Duels. They were very similar games where you duel characters, you can kind of follow how the anime went, or you can just duel whatever characters that you want. And yeah, it was just kind of basically that. It was kind of like a glorified YuGiOh Pro mostly, in my opinion at least. I feel like there is a lot more that they can do when it comes to a Yu-Gi-Oh video game, especially now that we have Link VRAINS and we have the opportunity to have a lot of customization features when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh if you made a video game based on Link VRAINS. So, would be cool if we got something like that, but this doesn't seem like it's going to be. I bet you it's literally going to be Legacy of the Duelist, just with links and with a new, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS section right after Arc 5. That's my opinion, or prediction, I should say, as to how that video game will go. But yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap things up here, guys. So please let me know all your thoughts on all of this. Hopefully, you learned something new from this video, got a new perspective on things, and enjoyed my Yu-Gi-Oh! Roundup February 2019. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Omni Lord, and Neko Yuu-Chan, and to my Diamond tier patrons, Bouldergeist and Jesse Wood, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons, Syn Cloud and Chris Swan. A huge thank you to everyone who helps me out on Patreon. I cannot begin to tell you how much it really does help me financially and help me make content like this for you guys. And a huge thank you to everyone who just watches my videos, because without you guys, well, there would be no Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. Thank you all so much for watching. I will talk to you down below, and I hope you have an amazing day.